Welcome back to EP3, a comprehensive user interface for Energy Plus. In this tutorial, I will talk about HVAC systems and review the HVAC system diagram as well as the architecture of HVAC systems in EP3. Today we'll be looking at the HVAC systems for the 5-zone air-cooled example file that comes when you install Energy Plus. This file, the IDF file, has been imported into EP3. What we see here is the building geometry. You can toggle back and forth between the building geometry and the HVAC system diagram using these two buttons here. We also see when you open the outliner that you have the HVAC group is an EP3 object, which is shown when you're in the View HVAC mode. And we also have the building object, which is an EP3 object, which is visible when you're in the building mode. You can also have other SketchUp objects which are outside of those two groups. Any other objects will not be recognized as an EP3 object. This is just the title for the tutorial here. So if we go to the diagram, you can see we have a couple of loops. I'm going to expand this HVAC group in the outliner. So this is a group, and in SketchUp, groups are just collections of other objects, which can be either groups or components or lines or faces. So in the HVAC group, we have a boiler here. We have a set point manager for the boiler. If I click here, this is a loop. It's a hot water loop. This right here is the chilled water loop. And we have an air loop as well, the AV system 1. EP3 expects any HVAC object to be inside the HVAC group. Each loop will also have some associated objects like splitters and mixers. So we have, if you double click into the loop object, you'll see that there are some splitters and mixers in default locations. You can move these if for some reason you want to change the way that the diagram is drawn. However, for most purposes, you can leave these in default locations. We also have the designation between the supply and demand side. So we have the loop inlet and the loop outlet. Same with air system. We have the designation between supply and demand. Each Energy Plus component in general is represented by a SketchUp component. So we have a boiler here, we have pump, we have pipes, chiller, etc. Each one of these objects has nodes which you can connect to loops. Some of these connections are optional. So for example, the chiller has chilled water inlet and outlet nodes, and then also has these optional node pairs for heat recovery and condenser water. This air terminal is a special object. In EP3, we call them composite objects. So this is an object that has some subcomponents to it. This air terminal has a reheat coil that is included within the air terminal. Clicking on any one of these objects and opening the selected object dialog will show you all of the same information that you would see in an IDF editor. However, there's some additional intelligence. So the node name fields are not editable because this is all calculated automatically by the user interface. If you click on a loop, we'll see that the loop has the basic loop information. And then we also have the sizing object for the loop. And we have equipment lists and control schemes. And this will also show you your branches, but you can't edit your branches. Branches are all calculated based on the placement of objects. If I move an object inside the HVAC diagram, all I need to do to get the program to redraw the diagram is to simply click out of the HVAC group and click back in. So I can move any of these objects around, click out, and click back in. Sometimes you want to move an entire loop, so you can right click and say select all entities connected to this loop, and then I can move all of it, and everything stays connected the way it should. If we look at a composite object, we'll see that we have some extra buttons up here. We can look at editing the heating coil or the air terminal. This object, in addition to being a composite object, is a zone object. You notice that I said that we were working with the 5-zone air-cooled object. However, we see only one air terminal. This is because in EP3, we don't like having lots of copies of the same object. Instead, what we'll do is apply this one object to multiple zones. So internally, it creates copies of this object. The way you assign zone HVAC equipment to zones is, so you open the selected object dialog, and anytime you're inside the HVAC group but with nothing selected, you'll have some buttons that are related to the HVAC group. So clicking View Zone Assignments is where you want to go to see which HVAC objects are applied to which zones. So here we go. We have this VAV reheat object is applied to space 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It is not applied to the plenum. Now let's go back and look at this VAV object. Here at the top, we have what looks like the IDF editor. It looks very similar to the IDF editor for the air terminal single duct VAV reheat, except that some fields are calculated, like the nodes. And if we go down, we also have a copy made for each of those spaces. And notice the coloring here. So anything that has a background of red is a default value. If the background is purple, it's an inherited value. So I can change some of these values. So let's change the zone minimum airflow input method, perhaps to scheduled. And we could just choose a schedule here. Now, if I reload this and I scroll down, we'll see that for this space 1, these two values are now white because these are the values applied to this space. They are no longer inherited. All of the other spaces that have this object applied still inherit from the parent. If we scroll down a little bit farther, we can see inputs related to the heating coil. If you want to edit values related to each zone for the heating coil, you need to select Edit Heating Coil, and then you can edit those values for each individual heating coil. I hope this gave you a decent overview of the EP3 HVAC system architecture. It is an advanced and highly flexible architecture, so it may take you a little bit of time to get familiar with it.